We can start with some laughs.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome,
Hello.
Hi.
welcome. Come on in to our special Friday chat. Make sure you share, like, comment. Let's see who's in. Okay, people are coming in. We're excited to be here with you tonight. We have a fun discussion planned. A lot of good things. Hey, Mark.
Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, we're good. We all here.
Cool.
We're ready to go. So I'll kick it off with a question for the panel. The election. So there's a lot that we can unpack from that election. But first, let's talk a little bit about how important it was for you to vote and what it meant to you this year, especially. Kim?
Oh, well, for me, it definitely, I vote every election. But this election was very important because there's so much political polarity in our nation right now. And it's always good to just be counted and make sure that you took the responsibility to make sure that you cast your vote and made sure your voice was heard. But also, it was important to make sure that the people around you were also taking the responsibility to vote because it was a very important election.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think about the number of people in our history that sacrificed their lives in order for us to have that right to vote. It kind of baffles me that people today sometimes are don't seem to feel the importance of voting, especially when so many people died to give us that right. So for me, it was very important that not only I cast my vote, especially during this election, but that my family did that. We did that as a family.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have voted in every election, but this one, for me, and in my lifetime, seemed to be the one that was the most crucial. Um, and primarily because I felt that we were truly going in the wrong direction
Absolutely.
in terms of treating people as though they all belong in these United States and and doing things in a very fair manner. And what's interesting is in other elections, I would vote a certain way. And it wasn't always democratic, but it wasn't that I had huge negative feelings about the opponent. It was just that the person I was voting for was more in line with what I believe. Whereas this was very different. And while I voted every election, this one I was probably more involved than ever before because it felt more important to me.
Hmm.
Because I felt that the democracy was under attack. So for the first time ever, I took part in a peaceful protest when the post office was under attack and when it was appearing that in an interesting way, they were trying to suppress the vote by removing mailboxes, by removing the sorting machines in the post office. I joined a movement that protested that, and I felt very good about that. But I felt that I needed to do something, and I'm of an age when in the '60s, while I was in high school, but protests were going on for the rights and especially civil rights in the South. And so we would see that on the nightly news of folks who look like us, who were fighting for these rights, fighting for the right to sit at a lunch counter, fighting for the right not to be sent around to the back, right? But I grew up in Connecticut, so I'm watching it from a distance.
Yes.
So that was part of my history, but I was removed.
Wow.
But this year, I didn't feel removed. I felt like I needed to be involved. And so for the first time, I was talking to people about whether they had registered to vote, because I felt it was that important. And so this felt like an election like no other election, like our lives depended on it. I think that's what I felt, that our lives depended on it. So it became more important that it was a fair election, that people got out, and that I did my part to encourage people who maybe might not have gone out. And then to ask them to go to vote during this pandemic, that was just like a double whammy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of your thoughts. My first time voting in a presidential election was when I was in college, voting for President Barack Obama. And that was historic and very special to me. But this felt historic in a different kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of what you just said, Sister Jane Ellen. It was the feeling of our democracy like being at stake. And, you know, as a Black woman in America, I just felt that we really needed to get out and vote and really encourage others in our networks to go out and vote. And I know we've done things at Bethany. Many of us, you know, we're encouraging people to vote, encouraging people to take the census, like all these things, just getting involved in the political process. And I felt like, especially with a lot of people in my generation and younger, there was a lot of counter arguing that my vote doesn't count, and like whatever, we're all a part of the system and blah, 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 blah. And it was trying to like overcome that and understand the importance of not just voting for president, but when you vote, you're also voting for local officials. And what does that mean for how you live day to day? So it was a very educational process in the midst of all of it. Mark, I don't know if you had any thoughts on the vote.
Yes. So I agree with a lot of what everyone said. And, you know, this year, it seems like it was just pretty intense as far as just the voting and trying to do my best to get as much information about each candidate as I can. Kind of wrestling with myself a bit, just understanding like there is power in this, and encouraging my peers to also just not talk about it and complain about things, but to definitely take it to the polls to utilize our power. I just felt like it was worth taking a chance to cast a vote than to just kind of sit back and still complain about the outcome in regards to our economy and the direction that we're headed. So yeah, it was very intense, very intense.
It almost felt like when I voted, when President Obama's election came about, my wife and I participated in the election process. We went out door to door and started encouraging people to vote, trying to support his campaign. But this felt very different for me. That was very empowering, but
Right.
This felt very different for me. This felt almost like my life depended upon it.
Yeah.
I had to vote. I wasn't comfortable allowing us to go back to where we were in the 40s and 50s and even beyond, because I really felt like this president and the people that follow him wanted to take us back to that era.
Mm-hmm.
We have a long way to go, but we can't afford to go back.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how do you all think we're going to be able to unite moving forward? Because this election divided not only the country, but it divided the Christian community as well. There were very strong feelings on either side. So like, how do you all think it's going to look moving forward?
Yeah, and I don't know if it divided it or that it revealed itself.
Ooh.
The divisions were always there.
Absolutely.
And the current president made it okay
Yeah.
for folks to display how they felt. the way that they did in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And then they had to kind of take it undercover. What I believe is that the Senate, and there are more Republicans in Congress now, are going to fight Biden and Harris at every single turn, the same way they did Barack Obama, and he had to do a lot of things by executive order. What I think is that he has a lot of great plans, but the same people that were in the Senate with Obama, when they said that anything he brought forward, even if they believed it was good for the people, they were going to vote against it because he brought it forward. I feel that those are the same people who were there with him, that they will be that way. But I also feel that having Biden-Harris puts us on a path to sanity. I feel the grown-ups are back in the White House.
Yes.
I feel that there can be some calmness. Don't believe or don't think that the Proud Boys and all those other groups are going to go away, right? And I watched last night, trying not to laugh at Rudy Giuliani with the dye coming down, hair coming down his face, as they stood up there and lied, right, about all of the fraud, et cetera. But I've talked to people who I've known for 20 something years who are intelligent people who believe all of that.
Yeah.
Right? And at the end of the day, I think we cannot forget that while Biden got the largest amount of votes in the history of a presidential election, 45 got the second highest. That's a lot of people who are okay with everything that he's been doing. So I'm not expecting things to change overnight. I'm not necessarily expecting that a lot of the plans that Biden would like to have happen will happen, unless he does them by executive order. What I do feel is the path where the current person was taking us, that stops, right? And so to me, I think that's what is hopeful for us, right? And then we've got to work. I think we have to work. Our work doesn't end because the midterms are just 2 years away.
Yeah.
And if we're not out there, if we're not getting the message, then the Republicans will turn the Congress over, right? So this is our opportunity to keep this going. And that's just my thought on that. But I'm happy for that Biden and Harris are in, but I don't want us to get so jubilant that we have blinders on about what the next 4 years are about to be like. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
It's going to be rough.
For sure.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Did anybody else have thoughts on that? Unifying as we go forward, what that could look like or not?
I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Mark?
I wasn't. You can go ahead. It's okay.
No, I was going to say I agree a lot with what my sister just said, and I just think that it's going to, part of what's going to be helpful is to have someone out there, have our president out there who's setting the right tone.
Yeah.
And I think that President-elect Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris will help to do that. But I agree, it's going to be a fight. I mean, this election clearly was a vote against Trump, but it still supported that Republican Party.
Yeah.
So there's still going to be that conflict, and the same people that were there supporting Trump in the Senate are going to still be there.
Yeah. Mark, you had something?
So just agreeing with everyone, but I was just going to say, like, more on a community level, it revealed a lot of people, and I guess their motives and a lot of the ideologies that they were behind initially. And this doesn't make them disappear. You know what I mean? And it's like they can't also back up into the darkness and this just goes away. It's like the perfect opportunity, like on a community and a social level, to continue to push the needle on these tough conversations in regards to disagreements and just, why someone may feel a particular way. And just, if anything, we can like you said, it's going to be a bumpy road, but we can utilize this to continue pushing the needle in the direction that we would need to go for the sake of us, our communities, or we can let this unfortunately be overturned. But there's power in the vote clearly, and I just hope that a lot of millennials, especially, are able to witness and see this. This is a moment in history right now, but the fight is not over.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, I believe it starts on a ground level, as Mark said, where we have to have tough conversations amongst ourselves. And I think what we saw, particularly in the last 4 years and leading up to the election, is a lack of empathy for other people's views from, the Trump side. And we could see that they were very vicious about protecting what they thought was very American. And it gets a little dicey, but talking with them, they feel disrespected in a way. And I'm like, where do you feel all this disrespect? But having empathy and trying to listen to and working together to become more unified, I think that's going to lead us to a better future.
Right. I think at the end of the day, we all want to see a successful and a great America. I got even scared just saying those two words together because of who they're associated with. Wow, that was interesting. But we want to see our country thrive, and I think we need to focus. And like Mark said, like we need to do the work. Like it's not over. Like the voting, that was great that we all came out. We did what we had to do there, but there are still other ways that we need to get civically involved to ensure that the rights of those that we love and our rights are protected moving forward. So it's definitely work to be done. Now, April brings up a good point. I'm going to put it up here. She says the transaction of peace is on the line. Trump will hurt others to keep separation of country going. And I think that's a lot of this. We're in like this waiting game right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree with April.
Yeah.
And whether it's those 70 million who voted for him, right? Or the Proud Boys and others of that ilk, they're not going away. He's empowered them. And so you hear them say it is no longer the Republican Party, it is Trump's party. And if you thought he was vocal and negative when Obama was president, with all the birther accusations, et cetera, it's going to continue. It's going to continue about stole the election, right? It's going to continue with negative words against Kamala Harris, who represents, America and what we're really supposed to be about in terms of a melting pot. So that's not going away. He's already said he's running for president in 2024, right? And that's really to freeze out any other Republicans from saying that they intend to run. So I think it's imperative, and Mark hit it on the head when he said it's about the local government also, because at the end of the day, while Biden got several million more votes than Trump, and he turned states that are typically red blue, but they went blue because they weren't necessarily supporting Trump, but they still voted the rest of the ticket Republican. Which is why so many won, which is why it's so interesting that he wants to make the elections invalid, because those senators and congressmen who won, they'd have to get out, right? You can't just say the president, you have to say that whole ticket isn't right. And if Democrats cheated, that's a funny way to cheat. You would take out Trump, but you would still leave in all the Democratic Republicans and senators, right? But if we're not doing the work at the local level, then during the midterms, those states that went blue this time will go back to red, right? And there won't be another 4 years after this one. So we can't be complacent. Everything is on the line, and he is going to keep that separation going. He saw that when he was initially campaigning in 2016, that resonated with a lot of people.
Mhm.
And that's frightening and it's sad, but it's a reality. I had to, last Saturday, so I drive to Maryland for my haircut. And that's a whole nother story. But as I was driving south on 95, that was the day that Trump supporters were rallying in DC. So I'm on the highway, got some nice music on, the sun's shining, and suddenly I'm seeing these trucks go by me with huge Trump signs and MAGA and all of that. And it took me into a very negative space of where I did not feel safe, right? And who wants to live like that? But that's where the world is right now. And somehow we have to help those who are being misled down that path, who aren't the true racists, right? That they have been, somebody used to say, bamboozled, right? And get back to what our real values are.
But I'm also encouraged, or I'm also hopeful, at least, that just as you said that the Trump supporters and the all of his club of folks who that they're there. I think that I hope that there are enough people in our community that would fight against that, who would be the representatives of a more positive truth than who will fight against that. Now, I'm not sure, and I've always heard that this, I don't know if it's a myth or not, about the millennials who don't necessarily think that it's important to vote and what have you. I guess one of my questions would be, if that is the case, how do we get these millennials or whomever who don't see the importance of it? How do we get them to become more involved? How do we get people in general to become more involved?
And that's correct. It's people in general. It is not just millennials.
Yes.
Because I'm in another age category, and this is a sad fact, but it's African American males who are older who typically will not vote, right? And so that really is the crux of what we need to work on. But I think the other thing is that if you look at the 60s and you look at history, it wasn't just our community. It was Jewish people.
Absolutely.
It was college students.
Yeah.
It really takes the coalition of what this country is to fight the fight. Because if it's just us, there's not enough of us, right? It's working with everybody to make that work. And so folks who put their lives on the line and died were of all ethnicities and races and religions in the 60s fighting for us. And I think it's us embracing that and knowing those folks and us working together. I talked about the post office and the peaceful protest. And there were probably, at the post office I was assigned to, there were probably about 60 people, right, who were protesting what the administration was doing. But there were only 2 Black Americans there, me and one other person. Right? And so I think it's a matter of all of us together having to fight this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. To answer your question, I think that, we need to appeal to what matters to folks. And that's how you get these different groups coming in. So for millennials, there's, I think, a few different things that are of concern to us. But if we know that there are people in these particular positions of power that are addressing those issues, then I think we'll be more likely to participate in the process. But when they're talking about things that don't really seem very tangible to us, we tend to tune out. I think it's just like, that doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah,
like,
that doesn't
really
apply.
won't pay attention. Yeah. So Keisha had a question here. She said, question is, so you think Biden-Harris will do what he's supposed to do now that he is the president? which I think is an interesting question, because what exactly is he supposed to do, I think, is where we start.
Well, I think part of what he's supposed to do is to set the tone for this nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he's attempting to do that. I think that Trump has definitely set a very negative tone, as probably most of us would agree. I think that the only thing that Biden can do at this point is begin to set a more positive tone and to try to set that message that he is the president of all the American people, not just some of the American people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I think that he's trying to do right now.
I think he said that in his speech when he said, you know, he was president-elect of the United States, not
Absolutely.
the red states, not the blue states,
blue
but
states.
the United States.
Yes.
So that was the first time in over 4 years we've heard about bringing this all together, that it's all of us, right? And so he's going to have to keep hammering at that message, because the opposite message was hammered for the past 4 years.
For sure. Mark or Kimmy, you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. I feel confident that Biden and Harris will do their best to deliver on all their policies that they've put in place. They've been very transparent, which I appreciate, about their plans for student loan debt, their plans for the affordable health care. And I feel confident that they will push for those types of things. My only concern, and we brought this up earlier, is that they will be, obstacles from the other side, like just as there was in the Obama administration. However, we do have the power ourselves to call our Congress people and make sure that those things are being taken care of, and that they are going to Congress and fighting for the things that we believe in.
For sure.
Right.
Mark?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just based off of that last speech that Biden was giving, and he was basically just talking about how Sister Jane mentioned just unifying everybody and just setting that tone, because we've heard such the opposite message for so long. So it's like he's kind of preparing that ground so that we can all come together to basically do that work. Whoever chooses or desires to participate in that vision, but it looks like he is targeting everybody. And I'm kind of like a sit back and all right, you're in there now. You and Harris, you guys are in there now. Okay, so what's going into application, and what areas are we able to do on the groundwork, on the ground level? What are we able to do on that ground level? So it's just going to be interesting now. I'm just kind of just sitting in my seat, just waiting for all right, where are we headed now? That's basically it.
Yeah, I think we got to apply the pressure. We got to hold them accountable to the things that they said they were going to do. And we do have that power in this democracy to do that. So speaking of Harris, she has this historic win as the first Black person in this position, the first woman in this position, the first Black woman in this position, Asian American, the list goes on and on. How does that make you feel? What does that mean to you? And what does that mean to the country?
Well, she's tough.
Yes, she is.
I feel very confident that we're going to be in good hands with her as our vice president. I think that she's very tough. She's very smart. I think that she's going to be a great representative to this country, for this country. And I think, looking forward, I think, when I was a young father, having a daughter, it was important to me that there be representatives that my daughter could see. And I think that for a lot of Americans, especially a lot of Black Americans, a lot of young ladies of color, young people of color, I think that it's going to be very important to continue to see people of authority and of power who are running this nation and running this nation correctly and positively.
Yeah. And I would even take it a little further than that, because she broke the glass ceiling.
Absolutely.
And so it's not just for little girls of color, right? It's for all little girls, because there have been at least 2 other times in our history, sometime in the 60s and then the mid 2000s, where presidential candidates had a woman as a vice presidential candidate. And one was on the Republican side, the other one was on the Democratic side. They didn't win, but there was that attempt. So first of all, there's a pride in that when there finally is a woman, it is a person of color, right? But I think it's good for all little girls. But I also think it's good for little boys too.
Absolutely.
That a woman, or it can be in that role, to expect, right? Because I'm waiting for us to get to a place where we're still the first of everything, right? So to finally have that, and it's a person of color, and she's my sorority sister.
Oh, okay.
I should have said that, but I think that, and the fact that she was running as a president, you know that she has the chops to do it, right?
Yeah.
You know that she has a very good view of the world order. So I think that we're in a very good position.
Right.
Yes, I agree. You can tell that Kamala Harris is very to the point. She doesn't let a lot of things slide. I feel confident of her in the position of vice president. And I think, especially it kind of feels like back when President Obama got elected, images matter, especially to young minority children and children in general. And to see finally a woman of color in such a high political position, it's very encouraging. And it's like Van Jones says, it's easier to tell your children that character matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It shows, it's going to show a lot of young women, as well as just children in general and generations after, something like this has been actually just nailed into history. And it's not going to be undone at this point. It's there, it exists. And it's funny because it's like, looking generationally, what can come after as a result, you know what I mean? There's children in school now that are able to witness this and see this, and may have perhaps like thought that, we never seen this, or this isn't possible, or anything like that. But Kamala Harris she's showing she can roll with the big dog. Has literally been facing scrutiny and everything like that, but still pushed and drove, and look at it, like she is where she is. So I think it's an awesome thing, and I would love to just see what the effect of this is going to cause for those even after her run.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I had my reservations about her as a presidential candidate, but it doesn't take away from who she is and what she's done and all her accomplishments and what this means for us as a country. So I'm loving it. I'm with you, Sister Jane Ellen. Like, it was great. Yeah, it's great.
And it's about time, because
it's overdue.
Historically, women have always been at the forefront of the civil rights movements, of any kind of movement. They've always been a strong part of that movement. Right. So to have a woman to take the lead and to be, I mean, it doesn't surprise me or make me feel any way negative about it. I'm excited about it. So
right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I also think the other reason why it's historic is because when you look at the quote unquote free world, you look in Europe, you look at other countries, they have had women as their prime ministers and as their presidents forever. But at the end of this day, while we talk about this country and the issue with race, they've got that same issue with women, right? And is it this year we're just celebrating that women were given the right to vote only 100 years ago, right? So to go from that to having the second highest office in the land is just a wonderful thing. And then on top of that, it's a person of color, right? Who went to an HBCU. So there's just pride all over that for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
But so many in this country aren't ready for that. And that is why a person like Trump was able to get in, because there were so many who were unwilling to vote for Hillary Clinton, primarily because she was a woman, right? That's really it. And they were somebody who was saying all the negative, nasty things he was saying during his campaign. He could shoot down Fifth Avenue and he'd still get elected, all the things with all the women, etc. People voted for him rather than a woman. That says what this country is and is not, right? So this is a step in the right direction. It truly, truly is.
Absolutely. So we're going to switch gears a little bit to talking about the second wave that we're experiencing. We've probably been experiencing it for a little while now, of this pandemic. How are you all feeling about that? Has it changed anything for you? Is it interrupting your day-to-day life? Talk to me.
How is it not interrupting? Right? So then it becomes a matter of how are you dealing with these, and I call this a transitional storm. Everybody calls this a new normal. I'm like, no, this is not the new normal. Eventually, what I call post-vaccine, that will be the new normal, right? But during this transitional storm, it's really been about figuring out how to find yourself and live in this environment. I will tell you, my first couple of months, because I'm a person, I'm moving all the time. You know, I manage a lot of people and I manage by walking around. And suddenly I'm sitting in front of Zoom every day, all day. And I think within a short period of time, I found I wasn't getting in my steps, right? I wasn't eating properly. And somewhere around the end of April, beginning of May, I'm like, this is not good, and turn that around, right? So I think you have to find that place, and the church has helped me find that place for sure, right? Friends have helped me find that place. I thank God that there's such a thing called Zoom, and that they have a business model where they make it free, right? And if in case you don't know, on Thanksgiving, there is no time limit on the free, right? Because they want families to be able to connect. No 40 minutes. But I think you've got to find it. And it's difficult for a lot of people, right? I think there are a lot of people who are lonely. I'm blessed to still be working, which keeps me very engaged, keeps me very active. But if somebody's retired and perhaps they were very active, you know, they got out and did a lot of things, but now you have to stay in, right? And you can't go anywhere and you're not working. That's hard for a lot of people. That is hard.
Yeah. I always said, like, I'm grateful. I work for an essential business, and I'm grateful that I was still able to go into work and know that our work mattered. I think that helped me because I am a person that's like always on the go. I don't know how I would have handled it if I had to work from home during this time. And, you know, my coworkers, we grew closer to one another because we were the only ones that we knew for most of this year that are still going into work. Most of our friends and family are working from home. So it caused us to grow closer and really build a support network for one another. So I'm grateful for that. But as we go into the second wave, I think it's just like, for a lot of us, there's some pandemic fatigue. So, you know, we've been wearing our masks every day, all day. And then, you know, sometimes people get a little lazy and the mask is slipping down your nose and you're not, you know, staying 6 feet apart. And it's like, you forget, like, we're still in a pandemic. Like we need, so it's like the second wave is kind of reawakening all of us to be like, oh crap, like we gotta get serious about this again and go back to doing the things we were doing very early on and taking a lot of precautions.
Yeah, so like you said, Jody, I'm also an essential worker too, so I go into work as well. So as far as transitioning, from the first wave, I still had somewhat a rhythm to my everyday activity. You know what I mean? And it's definitely easier when you have a rhythm. But unfortunately for those that have to now, they're not able to go out and be free and just move around or anything. I'm sure that's a pretty tough transition, but as far as like the second wave and everything like that, like you had mentioned, it's very unavoidable. It's very unavoidable. And what I've been spending a lot of my time doing is, of course, protecting myself, wearing my mask, staying involved in church community, and just having some type of rhythm to life, some type of schedule. Not always the best at it, but just understanding like this is a different life. This is a different situation, and there's not necessarily anything we're primarily going back to. So it just honestly, oh, sorry, kind of losing myself. But like I was mentioning, I was avoiding looking at the numbers for the longest. From the first wave and everything like that. I really avoided looking at the numbers and everything and looking at the news and all of that. But I did recently take a look at it. And, it just shows me, it's not that I wasn't taking it serious before, but it just shows me the real impact that this is having on real lives. And the numbers are, unfortunately, it's a lot. It's a lot of deaths that's taking place. There's a lot of cases. And to even know that there is a second wave, that there's this thing is going to get much worse, it just makes me feel for just those in our communities, families, and those who are alone and don't necessarily have just a warm body or somebody else to just communicate and talk to. So that's my piece.
Yeah, I think the phrase I keep going back to is continue with caution, because even though I feel like during the summer people got a little lax because they were able to go outside, they were able to go to the park, and do friend activities, meetups, and things like that. I think as winter comes around, yes, we're going to have to hunker back down and do more Zoom calls and have more telephone calls and reach outs to the people we love. But that's just what has to happen, because we can't be lax with this. This is a very serious illness that is spreading continually each day. And there's no vaccine officially yet. So I'm prepared to just stay here at home, post up.
Yeah.
It's been, I guess, like all of us, it's been kind of hard for me as well. I think up until 2 weeks ago, I was pretty much unemployed. So I had to, I spent most of my days on a computer anyway, and being told, just trying to look for jobs and things of that nature, and doing Zoom interviews and what have you. And that became very, 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 very tiring. But I know that it was part of what I have to do to keep myself safe, to keep my family safe, and to keep you and everybody else in the community safe. And I really don't get it why people can't, why people are not being sensitive to the fact that there are other people in this world besides just yourself. Bishop always says, if it's not good enough for grandma, if grandma can't come back in, then we're not letting anyone in. But so I don't understand why people are so willing to take risks with themselves, not caring about the other people around them. It makes no sense to me. But yes, it is tiring, seeing all the numbers, Mark, as you mentioned. That is very, very heart-wrenching to see that people have gone through this and people have died through this. They didn't necessarily have to, because we have an insane president who didn't give us the full information when he could have. Right. That is very discouraging. It is hard, but I continue to do what I have to do. Right now, as I've gotten back into the workforce, It's a little challenging in this COVID world now. Just the fact that I'm not even being trained the way that I normally would be trained in a new job is difficult. But this is the way things are for right now. It's momentary.
But how wonderful is that you were able to secure a new job during this pandemic?
God has been good. And here's the positive thing, that despite it all, God has really taken care of me and my family during this whole period of time. So I'm just very thankful. I'm very thankful. We've managed to keep our health. We've managed to keep the lights on. We've done everything that we've needed to do. So I'm just very thankful.
Yes, absolutely. Real quick before we go into our second or our last discussion, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, the intergenerational connectivity we've had, I feel like, because of 2020. How has that been for you, being able to connect in different ways with different generations, both younger, older? What has that been like? I can go. So I have a 4-year-old nephew, and he lives in Texas, and he loves to read and color. And there's this app called Caribou where we can do that together. So like he can pick the book and then I can read it to him and he can turn the pages on his end. He can also color in. So that's been a fun way to stay connected with him. Like I probably wouldn't have done that if we weren't living in a pandemic. We wouldn't, have connected in that way. So I thought that was cool.
My son is in Texas, is in the Navy in Texas. And through Zoom, we've been able to remain connected with him. And that has been very, very positive. We're looking forward to, on Thanksgiving, even though he won't be able to be here with us, to connecting with him on Thanksgiving Day. So that's very positive, and I'm very excited about that.
For myself, it has opened up opportunities to spend time with my niece and nephews, which is really cool because they're just full of questions, and I can only imagine. Can you almost imagine putting yourself in the younger children's shoes, and it's this world, it's this life that we're actually right. And they have a lot of questions, and just they still want to just be kids, and I want to be out and do things, and you got to let them know about precautions and just all of those things. But I just think it's opened that door for me, to be able to spend that time with my niece and nephews, and just kind of be another additional voice, just trying to steer them the right way. In spite of what's actually taking place, they're not. It's cool that they're not caught up on everything we are as adults at this point. You know what I mean? So they're actually helping me too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's good. Any other thoughts about that? Okay. So we'll end on a high note. We'll get some laughs going. We can put the picture up. Okay. So which Thanksgiving side dish can't you live without? We have cranberry. It looks like a very homemade type of cranberry sauce. And then we have sweet potatoes or yams. Look like we got butter, a little bit of cinnamon on the top. Oh, okay. It could be whatever dish you want. Okay, whatever dish. It doesn't have to be those two. Those are just an example. So whatever dish, what dish can't you live without? What side dish can't you live without on Thanksgiving?
So my son is vegan, and he has been for about 6 years, right? Although he's added fish into his menu to keep getting protein. So, and also my family from Connecticut always came to my home for Thanksgiving. So there would be, he could eat all of the sides, right? But everybody else would also have the turkey. So there'd be the cranberry and the dressing and all of those other things. But this year it's just he and I. And last year, when it was just the two of us, I did a turkey and then did his things and the fish. And then when he left and went home, I still had all of that turkey with just one person. I'm like, so this year I decided no, and do all seafood, but the potatoes, the sweet potatoes, those traditional sides that I grew up with and he grew up with are still there. But the seafood is a different touch. So it'll be macaroni and cheese, but it'll be lobster macaroni and cheese. It'll be dressing, but it'll be oyster dressing.
Ooh.
Yeah, but because it's the holidays, so you go special.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then I make a crab soup. So he's got the seafood, right? But we also got the collard greens and the cornbread. So
My mouth is literally watering.
this is the first year in my something years where there will be no cranberry relish. And I have always made mine because my mother made it, right? But when I did it last year and it was just my son and I realized he doesn't really care for it. And I would always have it left over, and then I would make cranberry bread. Well, since the pandemic, I've been making cranberry bread every other weekend and sending it to my family and son. So to make cranberry relish, to have the cranberry bread that used to be once a year, doesn't make sense. So there won't be cranberries this year, right? But I don't think we're going to miss it because everything else will be cool.
That sounds delicious.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Maya, if you're listening, this is what I want you to make. Maya makes the best sweet potato pies.
Yes, we've heard.
Well, I can't wait to get her sweet potato pie.
There
That's
you
what I'm
go.
looking forward to. And my
Okay.
wife, I know this is going to cook up a storm. She's going to cook like there's 20 people in this house. There's only 3 of us.
Right, but you can't help it.
Right.
You always cook for an army, you cook for an army.
You have leftovers like forever.
And the bad part about it is that I'll probably eat like for 20 people. So
Yeah.
Calories count during the holidays.
You're right.
Yeah, I was talking to my mom about what the dinner lineup is going to be, and I was like, let's just do the main things we love: ham, mac and cheese, greens, and sweet potato pie. So
There you
it's going to
go.
be simple, but it's the classics.
Yeah.
So
Sister Rhonda she makes a good sweet potato pie too.
we know.
Okay. Mark, what you got?
Yes, yeah. So for me, my mom, she's gonna be making some delicious items, but I'm really crazy about, I'm simple, but I'm crazy about her potato salad though. It's something really special about that potato salad. And it's funny because, when I used to live with her, it would be one of the first things that she had done. So I will always be able to like dibble and dabble into that, while everything else was getting made. But that's one thing I can't wait to honestly get a hold of. It's a different type of Thanksgiving this year, but the potato salad lives on.
I would say for me, I definitely need to have mac and cheese. It has to be baked mac and cheese, and it has to be super duper cheesy.
Yeah.
And then
Otherwise,
also,
it's not mac and cheese.
no, yeah, I don't want it to just be like baked, like I could scoop it out and it's dry. Like it's got to be like gooey and like messing up on the side of the pan and everything. You got to lift it up and little cheese just dripping off the spoon. All of that. I need that whole experience when I pull it out. And then also sweet potatoes. I like them however they're cooked. Candied, mashed. I love the sweet potato. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Okay. Thank you all for participating in our first, the Outlook tonight. We had a great discussion from election to the pandemic and of course, Thanksgiving coming up next week. I want to thank everybody who was with us tonight and who tuned in, who participated. April says we're gonna need sweatpants. Yes, yes, we will.
Yes,
Yeah.
Eating good.
absolutely.
Mhm.
That's a given.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and please stay connected with us. We are on social media every day. You can catch Bethany going live and connecting with us. So thank you all for being with us. Good night.
Thank you, Jody. You were a great host.
Yes,
Thank
yeah,
you.
fabulous.
Good night, everybody.